خير من دفنت بالقاع أعظمهم، فطاب من طيبهن القاع والأكم. نفس الفداء لقبر أنت ساكن فيه العفاف وفيه الجود والكرم. نفس الفداء لقبر أنت ساكنه فيه العفاف وفيه الجود والكرم. أنت الحبيب أنت الحبيب الذي ترجى شفاعته عند الصراط إذا ما زلت القدم. أنت الحبيب الذي ترجى شفاعته عند الصراط إذا ما زلت القدم.
منك القبول أخرجت من سجن الأسى وزج بي عين الوصول وصرت بي كمنسى ولست من قلبي تزول بين الصباح والمساء. النظر فيك يا جميل نعيش بها عيشا رغائي نور سناك وقد بدا للناس يلوح أم كيف لي أعشق سواك وأنت لي جسم وروح أوقدت في قلبي هواك وقلت لي إياك تبوح الله الله يا
Good evening. My name is Dr. Siobhan Asma Bygate. It's a great pleasure to be with you this evening, and I hope you've enjoyed the programme so far. As always, first of all, I would like to thank, Sidi Jamal Kadiri Bouchish and Moulay Munir Kadiri Bouchish and their wider families for their support for this event, for it to take place. And last but not least, the technical team for their sustained hard effort. So, as some of you may have been watching throughout the week, you will have seen a few talks about some research that we're doing. And you may be aware of who we are as a charity and the nature of the research. But just for those who possibly missed out, I'm just very quickly going to recap a little bit so you can put this webinar into a bit of context. So Bridging Spiritual Cultures is our foundation, BSPC, and it's registered in the UK, but it's made up of some international academics, Fuqara, excuse me, and also academics from outside our foundation. And the aim of the research, as instructed by our president, Sidi Moulay Munir Kadiri Bouchish, is to build contacts and research efforts and understanding between academic institutions and wider populations in different countries about the nature of a spiritual orientation and also the nature of Sufism. And we all know in these times with the negative image, unfortunately, that Islam can sometimes have because of extremism, we understand the importance of getting the message out there about the essential peaceful nature of Islam, especially in its expression through Sufism. So one of the first pieces of research that we have designed and about which we've had a few talks already is looking at the nature of an engagement with spirituality in postmodern societies. And we're looking at this through the efforts of three organisations, which are Tariqa-inspired organisations, which run workshops at the moment online because of COVID in different countries. And the three countries we're looking at is Paris, so France, Paris, and through VSMF, and through BSPC in London, our outreach activities, and through Adalil in Latin America, well, in Mexico in particular. So these are some of the organizations that we're looking at. However, in addition, we're conducting some metadata analysis as well. And these things are going to come together with a theoretical analysis, a framework which we're going to place all of this data in to be able to deduce what's happening. And just to say that we had the idea of this research before COVID happened. And of course, as COVID has happened, the importance of this research has actually increased. So it's become even more important that we really understand what's going on today under these extraordinary conditions. So I'm going to introduce the speakers this evening. And if we can just go to the first slide, please. So the first slide will explain to you, we'll have our logo on. I can't see it right now. I'm hoping that you can see it. And it just is the logo for our charity. And it explains the title of the research, which is Spirituality in the Times of COVID-19. Now, the speakers we have this evening, first of all, we have Dr. Abril Saucedo Medina, who will be talking to you about megadata and her work on Facebook. We are hoping, there we go, there's the slides, I can see them now, thank you very much. So could we go to the next slide, please? Fantastic, thank you. So Dr. Abril Saucedo Medina will speak to you about the megadata. We are hoping to have Dr. Jose Reyes Valdez from the Saltillo University in Mexico with us. However, there are some technical difficulties from Mexico, so it may be that he won't be able to join us, which would be unfortunate. But we do have a backup plan, and the backup plan is that Dr. Abril Saucedo Medina, who works with him, will be able to explain some of his mathematical researches on Twitter. And don't worry, she won't go into the maths too much. She's just going to skim over the kind of thing that he is researching and how that's going to feed back into our research. And then we're going to have our research assistant, Miss Farida Mahdi, who will speak to you about the area of questionnaires, quantitative and qualitative data that we are looking into, and how that also is going to feed back into the overall research. Towards the end of the presentation, I will give you an example of the timeline that we're working to. And please do bear in mind, this is a pilot project. It's never been done before in terms of the combination of methodologies, the nature of the subject, and most of all the conditions that we're doing this under. It makes for very interesting research, but it truly is a pilot and it's a work in process. And we're very aware that as we go forward into the first and second phases after the pilot, that we may be changing some of the models that we're using and tools for this very reason. So at the end of the whole presentation, there will be time for you to ask questions, and we're looking forward to hearing feedback from you. That would be really interesting for us as researchers. Okay, so we're going to hand over, sorry, if we could have the next slide, please, that would help. Lovely. I just want to review a couple of things here. We are looking at 3 basic aims are to establish the search for spirituality under conditions of COVID-19 using online technologies, to understand the impact of the search for spiritual expression in modern and postmodern societies under these conditions, and the implications for the definitions and organizations of secularism. And we need to think about redefinitions of the word secularism and redefinitions of the word spiritual engagement. I am sure that you're all very aware of the very sad news in France, the sad news also in Quebec, in Canada. We need to think about now how we as a society integrate people and organize as people of faith. What does that mean about how we interact in society? And we all know that true Islam and Sufism is far away from extremism and far away from violence. However, we need to know how to be visible in a positive, peaceful, and in a way which contributes to society. So discussions around ideas of modernism, secularism, spirituality are very, very important. We need to arm ourselves with a vocabulary which carries a meaning. And these discussions need to be taking place within our countries where we now find ourselves, and that may be in countries which are francophone. It may be countries of an Anglo-Saxon type background. It may even be in countries of a post-colonial society and a post-colonial experience. However, we all need to start discussing these things. We need to be able to account for how we are in society and how we can positively contribute. So we're going to hand over now to Dr. Salcedo Medina, and she will probably want the next slide up in a second. And she's going to explain to us the nature of her Facebook research and account for Dr. Valdez's Twitter research. The screen that you see in front of you before we pass over to Dr. Salcedo Medina is something we will come back to later on in the webinar. Ms. Mahdi is going to refer to this model, which is one we are using for our questionnaire. And there will be a little bit of interaction later on around some questions that she will run with you, a little bit of an audience participation. We hope it works, fingers crossed. And that will give you an idea of how these questionnaires are going to work. So over to Dr. Salcedo now, and the next slide, please.
Assalamu alaikum. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for attending. I am Dr. Etablir Salcedo Medina, and for this occasion, I will share with you some of the work I have been doing regarding metadata analysis. As all we know, we are living in a new normal. People have been more with free time. People might increase our web interaction, and in general, people could be searching for answers on how we deal with this new approach of life. But how nowadays the way we interact, think, and feel have changed. Are people on the web searching for spirituality? If there is so, where and which kind of information are they looking for? How does this, or their own language and written words, may give us clue of their line of interest? And how do they share the knowledge, experience, and feelings? It is clear for us that those answers are not simpler or easy to obtain. Furthermore, it is relevant to find some way to get information to answer them, at least partially. In this sense, we are talking about metadata storage on the web that manually is quite impossible to handle. So we looked for the help of science to find some solutions. On one hand, the technology development has been accelerated in the last decade. On the other, public access to the web is available to interact, to use it. For this project, we choose two of the most popular online social networks, Facebook and Twitter. I shall present our work in progress of Facebook analysis about spirituality groups in English, French, and Spanish. Our target universe has around 2 billion users in Facebook just in January 2020. We looked for the word spirituality that use their self-description. Please go to slide 7. Our sample include 2,075 groups in total, 99 in English, 100 in French, 84 in Spanish. We collect their name, the type of organization, if they were public or private, and the date of registration, the number of the members, and the number of the publication. In addition, the purpose written by the administrator were captured, and in most of the cases, their own descriptions give us a clue of their spirituality orientation. For this presentation, we share two tables of our first local Facebook spirituality groups. As you see in table number 1, regarding the RITE model from the total group, we found 129 in the theistic vector, 99 in the existential, and 32 in the ritualistic vector. Related to the public and private type, the groups slightly prefer to be open. About the analysis of the keywords of Facebook spirituality group purpose, we identify some of the key words, and we organize them in 5 columns. But due to the limited of time, I shall present a brief view of the 3 groups as you see in table 2. Please go to slide 8. In the first column, in the next slide, please. In the first column, we have regarding values, wisdom, spirituality, peace, faith, self-realization, kindness. In the next column, about feelings and emotions, we have love, inner peace, awakening, intuition, understanding, and empathy. In the next column, about cult, school, or current, we have yoga, voodoo, vampirology, Christianity, Muslim, and quantum physics. The next column talk about role model entities. And here we have Krishna, God, Buddha, Martin Luther King, Gandhi, Jesus Christ. And the last one, we have alchemy, karma, spells, incarnation, clairvoyance, life in other planets. So far, we started to build a quantitative database for future measure of increasing group action regarding members and publication. And also, we start to build the keyword constellation of each group about their spiritual orientation. Now, in relation to Twitter analysis, spirituality is also the keyword. So let us get information about individual or groups. I would like to say that this is the field of Dr. Jose Reyes Valdez. He couldn't be able to talk today, so I will do my best to describe the work that has been doing for his research. And please go to the next slide. In the screen, it shows a word mapping to simplify the abstract and the complex world of artificial intelligence, a statistical and mathematical model in this matter. Please go to the next slide. Our aim is digging into a huge amount of data. The next one, please. And extract relevant information associated to spirituality. Thank you. As here is where artificial intelligence model is used to analyze information using statistical procedures through mathematical models. So, how data mining works? Well, there are many sources of public information in the cloud: Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We can look for keywords to search public information. There are millions of documents like Twitter. Then the data is cleaned, organized, and in a structural way, and then stored to later processing data to get information. Here, we will use descriptive analysis and correlation through data exploration. How to classify data in terms of opinions? Again, artificial intelligence arrives. There are different available training data based on millions of documents. We are able to identify an opinion, positive or negative, or other classifications. Then call testing data mathematical models. This is then comparing testing data to training data. With this in mind, we can make some predictions, polarity of opinions called polarity analysis. The next step, a deeper analysis of the data, is called sentimental analysis, which consider not only polarity, but put-tick wheel of emotions. This analysis identifies 8 emotions: love, submission, awe, disapproval, remorse, content, aggressiveness, and optimism. A huge amount of tweets related with keywords spirituality or Sufism have been downloaded, and we work on the next stage related with cleaning, organizing, structuring, and storing the data to have the possibility of performance exploratory analysis. At this moment, we don't have conclusions, only traces of this complicated and interesting universe of web interaction through Facebook and Twitter. We are looking forward to keep you informed of our partial results, inshallah. And finally, integral, wider, and deeper studies are needed to know the real dimension on how this complicated time has changed our life. Thank you very much for listening. And now I give the mic to Dr. Gate and Ms. Farida Mahdi. Thank you very much.
So thank you very much, Dr. Salcedo Medina, for your contribution, and thank you very much for stepping in for Dr. Valdez, who unfortunately, sadly, couldn't join us for technical reasons. However, I think we've got a better idea of how the 2 megadata sets are going to feed into this research. So thank you for taking that responsibility on. So we're going to turn now to our research assistant, Ms. Farida Mahdi, and she's going to explain, as I said earlier on, the nature of the quantitative and the qualitative data that we're going to be collecting from questionnaires and interviews. And I understand that for those of you who didn't catch some of the talks earlier in the week, the RIT model may be a little bit new to you. So she's going to very kindly give us a little bit of a background to how that RIT model was originally developed in the States, and our awareness of how we're going to have to adapt that to look at our data sets. So thank you very much, Ms. Mahdi. If you could take over now, we're looking forward to your contribution.
Yes, thank you. So as explained by Dr. Salcedo Medina, the scientific megadata analysis from both Twitter and Facebook need to be completed with the human dimension behind the quest of searching one's spirituality or purpose. Therefore, the next step is to develop a quantitative and qualitative tool that will support our data analysis. So if I could have, if I can have the next slide, please. So in order to do so, we are working on building a questionnaire and interviews based on the right model developed by Webb, Toussaint, and Dola around the 3 following dimensions: ritualistic, theistic, and existential. So I will come back to the diagram later in the presentation. So if I can have the next slide, please, to give you the context. So how are we going to design the questionnaire? Oh, sorry, it's one slide above, the 12. So how are we going to design the questionnaire? For the study in 2014, Webb, Doula, and Toussaint used more than 1,300 students from an American university in a rural region to participate in the questionnaire. All the participants have completed a questionnaire composed of more than 60 items, which helped identify the type of spirituality they tend to be closer to. So regarding our own study, I think it's the next slide. Thank you. So regarding our own study, it is easy to understand that we already have a few points that need adaptation and improvement. Regarding the basic adaptations required, contrary to the sample of Web Toussaint and Dula, which are based on a mostly homogeneous group of people ethnically and religiously and in terms of educational level and spiritual and social background, our research will reach out to non-heterogeneous cohorts, ethnically and religiously diverse, a very diverse educational level, and a great spread of socioeconomic background. Moreover, our sample will be diverse in the sense that we aim to collect information from people at different stages of their spiritual development, or better said, their search. So as Dr. Bygate said, we will now try to fill you in and give you a few information on the questionnaire by doing a fun activity. So as we are all connected tonight for this webinar, I'm sure that each and every one of you would like to participate to this exercise to have an idea of what our questionnaire will look like. So your feedbacks will be highly appreciated. I will now ask you 3 different questions relative to each category or dimension for which you can answer by clicking on the thumbs up or commenting to show if this applies to you. If it is not the case, then you cannot reply. So this is a very rough example of the 3 categories we are working with, and although not very scientific in the small poll, it gives you an idea of how the categorization will work eventually. So I will need the help of the moderator to give me the number of answers to each question. So if I can please move to the next slide. Okay, so the first question is, I regularly attend organized worship services. If it is the case for you, you can click on the thumbs up. I'll give you a few seconds and see if the moderator can give me the number of people who answered. Is it possible to have a number, or do I move on? Okay, thank you. So the second question is, I feel belief in a deity or deities is very important. So I'll let you answer this question. Just a few more seconds. And finally, the third question is, I see life as a journey toward fulfillment. If you can press the thumbs up to tell us. Okay, so I've had quite a few responses. So thank you to people who answered the questions. And I will directly move on to explain to you how it is important for us to have your feedback and your responses on such questions. So if I can move to the next slide. As said before, as you can see, the sample of questions shows how the base questionnaire orientates the respondents in order to calculate their spirituality. And they can determine if it is ritualistic, theistic, or existential. On the graphic, it is pretty clear, but just in more common words, ritualistic is religious and spiritual. Theistic is religious but not spiritual. And existential is spiritual but not religious. Regarding the responses to your questions, as you can see, for the question number 1, I regularly attend organized worship services. It tends to point if the person tends to be in the category of ritualistic spirituality. For the question 2, I feel belief in a deity or deities is very important. It points to the theistic spirituality. And finally, for the third question, I see life as a journey toward fulfillment. It points to and orientates to existential spirituality. So if you look at the model, you have a clearer view of the 3 dimensions and you can see how they can connect. Naturally, you may have answered to more than one question, and that would locate you towards the center where the 3 areas overlap. This would indicate an optimum of spirituality. So I will conclude by saying that, of course, this is just a small taste of what we are planning to carry out, but the questionnaire needs to be placed back into the overall research, which will use a triangulation process to verify the results. So to understand how this will be carried out over time, I shall refer to Dr. Bygate, who will present the timeline of the project going forward. So back to you, Dr. Bygate. Thank you.
So thank you very much, Ms. Mahdi, for a very good and clear presentation. So if we could go to a couple of slides down to the timeline. If we go down the slides, down towards the bottom, other way, I think. So while we're going towards the end of the slides, I'm just going to pick up from there. That's perfect. Thank you very much. From where Ms. Mahdi left off. As you can see, and as Ms. Mahdi alluded to, the model we're using is a very innovative one and a useful one because it's placing religion within spirituality. And when we look at a lot of definitions of secularization and modernization going hand in hand with a decrease in religion, a lot of sociologists are looking at church going, which is actually only a ritualistic form of spirituality. So this model, what's useful is that it places spirituality as the overall umbrella, and within it and underneath it places ideas of religious practice, theistic interest, and interest in more existential behavior, which someone might not necessarily identify as being spiritual, but in fact, in searching for meaning and an ethical way of living one's life, one is actually searching for some kind of spiritual context. So the usefulness of this model is that it enables us to look at attention to spirituality within modern and postmodern societies. And for that, it's very flexible. However, as Ms. Mahdi alluded to, it was originally run on a cohort in America of female psychology students who are very heterogeneous. And we are applying this model to something which is quite different. And it's different both in the spread of who we're going to look at and their backgrounds, but also it's going to be very different in the way we are trying to explore the meaning of spirituality and apply that to an analysis of secular society. So this is our timeline. As you can see, the phase 1, we started in April 2020, and we've already started on the megadata analysis, as Dr. Salcedo Medina explained, and for herself and for Dr. Valdez from Mexico. And that megadata analysis is throwing up some really interesting things, and we're using that to inform the design going forward. While that's been going on, we've been looking at the questionnaires and the surveys and how we're going to run those. And we're hoping that that will go into its first application for the 3 organizations in the 3 initial countries in over November, December. And by that time, we'll get some feedback and hopefully we'll be able to tweak any problems that we've got and make the model and the tools more robust. And in phase 2 from January 2021, we're hoping to do the second phases of all those tools and apply them. And finally, in phase 3, we'll be looking at the theoretical models. So how does this look in France compared to the UK, compared to Mexico? And each of those countries have got very different relationships with how society is organized. And in France, you've got laïcité, which is a very particular interpretation of secularism. And in the UK and in Mexico, it's quite a different arrangement. So that's what's interesting. How do people interact and search spirituality within those different sociological contexts? And we're really excited about seeing what comes up. Once that's done, we hope to then extend the study with the reinforced models and tools to other countries and organizations. So I know for all of you, that's quite a lot to take in one presentation. For us as well, it's been quite a lot to work to get to this point. So I hope you're still with us. And we'd like to open it to any questions that the audience may have. And do remember, there's never a stupid question. All questions are useful. And often the question that's most basic can be the most useful. So we will try our best to answer where we can. Where we can't, we will say, that's a good point, we'll explore that further. But we're very happy to have feedback or questions or ideas. That would be really interesting. So I'm going to hand back to the moderator to field those questions and let us know what's coming through. So we need to know what the questions coming through are so we can respond. Okay, so while I'm waiting to hear what some of those questions might be, what I'm going to do is to look at the model again for the ritualistic, theistic, and existential. So if we can get that slide up, please, I will just fill in a bit of time looking at that while we get some ideas of what the questions might be. So what's interesting about this model is that, as I said before, is the flexibility that it allows us to look at spirituality, the perspective it allows us to look at spirituality from. And from the questions that you may have answered from Ms. Mahdi, you will find if you answered all 3, that would locate you in the center. And that center is the optimum area of spirituality. Now, it may, obviously, the questions are going to be a lot more complicated than the 3 that you were given, and they will be asked in order to locate people very carefully within that diagram. And we would hope to have a cluster type diagram eventually, which will show where people in different countries or different societies are locating themselves. So it may be that in one country that people are more towards the existential while covering the other areas, and in another country more towards the theistic or the ritualistic. This study was actually run with a very conservative set in America, and they tended to come out towards the ritualistic. So for them, church going was very, very important, but they didn't necessarily think too much about God, and they didn't think very much about ethical behavior. It was the ritualistic pattern that was very important to them. It was also run in another area within America, within another cohort, and these people were coming out much more strongly along the existential and theistic, which tends to be more of an overlap in postmodern societies. What's important here is that, in fact, all three elements are required. And what's interesting is this model was initially applied within a nominally Christian country. So its official religion was Christianity, but with possibly not so much Christian adherence. And so in our situation within an Islamic context, this pattern may be quite different. So the sociology of Islam is quite different from the sociology of Christianity. So I hope that's given you a little bit more detail and a little bit more context for what we're doing. And I'm going to hand back now to the moderator to see if there's any questions that have come in that we can answer. Possibly there's a little bit of a technical challenge here. So what we might do is, if we take a record of those questions that have come in, and we will write some answers and put them back onto the Facebook page at a later point. That might be a better use of time now, if the technical problems are still going to remain a challenge. So on that note, thank you very much for your attention, and thank you very much for trying to understand our research. We are really looking forward to feeding back to you the results of our research soon. We hope it's going to inform both us, but all of us, about how we now need to think about our role in society and contributing positively and honestly to a decrease in tensions and a decrease in polarity, and to be able to develop the vocabulary to explain the true nature of Islam, the true nature of its expression through Sufism, and how we can all contribute positively to a peaceful society. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference and the Mawlud celebrations. Bismillah. Thank you.
وأكمل خلقت مبرأ من كل عيب خلقت مبرأ من كل عيب كأنك قد خلقت كما
وأظهر بهير الآيات لنكفى كل ما نخشى أغثنا يا أبا الأشراف بسر ضمناه الألطف لنعطى من يد الإسعاف غياثا فوق ما نرضى أغثنا يا أبا البرهان أغثنا وكشف الأحزان وتغشى قبرك المنصار صلاة مع سلام الله الله يا الله الله مولانا الله مولانا يا العظيم الله الله يا الله الله مولانا الله مولانا يا العظيم الله إني إذا ما ذكرت ربي اهتز شوقي إلى لقاه الله يا الله الله مولانا الله مولانا يا العظيم الله الله يا الله الله مولانا الله مولانا يا العظيم الله طابت حياتي وضاق قلبي بذكر ربي جل علاه الله يا الله الله مولانا الله مولانا يا العظيم الله الله يا الله الله مولانا الله مولانا يا العظيم الله قولوا الله قولوا الله قولوا الله قولوا بسر الله قولوا الله قولوا الله قولوا الله قولوا بسر الله ماذا قطع ما الغرام إلا ماذا قطع ما الغرام إلا من عرف الوصل أو داره من عرف الوصل أو داره قولوا الله قولوا الله قولوا الله قولوا بسر الله قولوا الله قولوا الله قولوا الله قولوا بسر الله فقال إني لكم محب فقال إني لكم محب رب كريم نعم الإله رب كريم نعم الإله قولوا الله قولوا الله قولوا الله قولوا بسر الله يضيق عنها اصطبار لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله يا الأحباب محلى ذكر الله حادي القوم أعيد لي ذكر من زار وسار تاركا في القلب نورا تاركا في الجسم نارا لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله يا الأحباب محلى ذكر